Okay, let's dive into an explainer today that, honestly, it completely flips the script on everything we think we know about the dynamics of bullying, power, and emotional healing. You know the traditional narrative, right? The strong preying on the weak. We've seen it a million times. But what if that whole premise is actually backwards? Today, we're unpacking the deep psychological mechanics of why people attack, why certain people just seem to be relentlessly targeted, and most importantly, how to actually break that cycle for good. This isn't just theory, it's a real roadmap to profound psychological clarity.
We're starting with this quote straight from the source material, and it literally stopped me in my tracks. Those with a core in their heart are not shaken by someone's malice. Let that sink in for a second. Notice what's missing there. It doesn't say those who are physically tough or people who ruthlessly fight back. It's all about having a core. This entire paradigm shift we're exploring today hinges on understanding exactly what this core is, how it gets stripped away from us, and the surprisingly gentle, counterintuitive way we can rebuild it to become, well, virtually immune to psychological attacks.
So let's just dismantle the biggest myth right out of the gate. If you've ever been targeted by an aggressive person, your first thought was probably, I'm weak or I'm at fault. We all do it. We instinctively internalize the blame. But the psychological reality, it's the exact opposite. You aren't targeted because you're weak. You're actually targeted because you possess an incredible asset, high sensitivity. Your mind is constantly processing the world from multiple angles. You pick up on subtleties that most people completely miss. But, and here's the catch, without a proper internal anchor, that absolute superpower can kind of leave you incredibly vulnerable to manipulation.
To understand why that happens, we need to look at what's called the mental axis, or kokoro no jiku in Japanese. Think of it like a psychological resting place for your thoughts. It's your anchor in a storm. When you have it, you process incoming information calmly and objectively. But when you don't have this mental access, that beautiful, perceptive sensitivity turns right against you. Instead of observing clearly, your highly tuned mind just spirals into endless, unanchored questioning. You're constantly trying to figure out where you fit into a chaotic situation, second-guessing literally every interaction.
We've absolutely all been there. It looks like this. You get a cold shoulder in the break room or a super short text message, and your brain just goes into absolute overdrive. Wait, do they hate me? Was it my tone? Maybe I'm the problem? Is it something I did yesterday? It is exhausting. And this constant self-doubt inevitably leaks out into your body language, your apologies, your hypervigilance. And unfortunately, to an aggressor looking for an easy mark, this internal instability makes you a highly reactive target. You're basically handing them the exact emotional feedback they're hunting for.
So how do we fix this wobbling axis? Well, our first instinct is usually tough love, right? Friends will say, just ignore them, or you need to toughen up. Actually, scratch that. Telling someone to ignore the pain just makes them doubt their own feelings even more. It destabilizes them further. The real fix, the profound stabilizing power, comes from something so simple it's almost crazy. It's just having those raw, messy emotions heard and accepted without a single drop of judgment. Just hearing someone say, wow, you feel that way, don't you? That pure, unadulterated validation gives your spiraling mind a safe place to finally land and catch its breath.
And this sets up an amazing psychological roadmap for recovery, moving from chaos to clarity. It starts right at the root, just allowing yourself to feel sad and hurt, no suppressing it. But the magic pivot happens when those feelings are truly accepted by someone else. Once that sadness finds a safe harbor through being heard, something incredible happens. It naturally evolves into healthy anger. And as that anger does its job, it eventually burns out into this state of complete detachment, where the aggressor's behavior suddenly just looks, well, utterly ridiculous to you. Let's pause on that for a second, because I want to reframe anger for you. Society tells us anger is toxic, right? Something we have to suppress. But healthy anger is fundamentally different. It's a natural, fiercely protective reaction. Imagine someone repeatedly stepping on your foot. Healthy anger isn't screaming wildly. It's that absolute clarity of saying, wait, no, this situation is wrong and you need to step back. When you stop asking what's wrong with me and start declaring this is unacceptable, you are actively defending your own existence. It is a fantastic sign that your mental axis is rebuilding itself.
Okay, so as your emotional core gets solid and you finally stop blaming yourself for every negative interaction, the perspective shifts. We can start to turn our clinical lens outward. We have to look at the aggressor and ask the big question, why do they attack in the first place? If we've established it's not because you are fundamentally flawed, then what exactly is driving their relentless, exhausting need to diminish you?
This leads to one of the most counterintuitive reveals in our source material. When we picture bullies, we think dominant, arrogant, completely in charge, right? But the psychological reality beneath the surface is that they are driven by deep anxiety and intense fear. They aren't acting out of an abundance of strength. No way. They are acting out of a desperate, terrified panic about their own worth and stability. It completely exposes their fragility. Inside, they are deeply frightened and unstable. They literally have to use dominance to feel above someone else just to confirm they even exist in the room. Because they are so terrified of their own vulnerability, they project it outward. They scan the room, spot your sensitivity, and punish you for the exact weakness they cannot face in the mirror. And tragically, if we trace it back, they likely lacked the very thing we talked about earlier, a safe space to be truly heard in their own past. They're just trapped in a cycle of projecting pain. Now, when you finally reach that state of detachment we talked about, where your mental axis is rock solid and their attacks suddenly just look childish, you unknowingly deploy the ultimate countermeasure. The source text calls it the glass wall effect, and it is a total game changer. It fundamentally flips the entire power dynamic without you ever having to throw a punch or raise your voice.
Here is how it dismantles the aggressor. Aggressors absolutely need your reaction. Your tears, your fear, your spiraling doubt, that is the tangible proof of their power. It's the fuel that keeps our ego inflated. But when you simply stop reacting, it's like you're watching them flail on the other side of a thick, soundproof glass wall. They're throwing a massive tantrum, but you can't hear the noise. You strip them of their fuel. Without your reaction to prop them up, their false sense of existence completely crumbles. They experience this sudden, confusing isolation, and just like that, the power dynamic naturally dissolves into thin air. This state leads to what psychologists call true understanding. Now, don't get me wrong here. This isn't about letting them off the hook, and it is definitely not about forcing yourself to forgive their toxic behavior or welcoming them back into your life. True understanding is just recognizing the attack clinically. You see it merely as the aggressor's own unhealed pain and panic spilling over onto the floor. It belongs to them, not you. Once you see their psychological mechanics that clearly, they can never, ever terrify you again. The illusion of their strength is broken. Because at the very bedrock of all this conflict, there is a profound shared reality. Both the victim and the aggressor, despite being on totally opposite sides of this painful dynamic, are ultimately driven by the exact same human truth. We cannot survive alone. Underneath the fear, the attacks, the spiraling doubts, and the desperate need for dominance, everyone is just desperately craving connection, validation, and a sense of belonging in a very chaotic world. Ultimately, reclaiming your core, that all-important mental access, isn't an overnight fix. It's a gradual journey of relearning how to trust your own mind. But remember, it begins the exact moment you allow yourself, or someone else, to be truly heard without judgment. True dialogue isn't about fixing or changing people. The profound lesson here is that listening alone, pure unfiltered listening, creates the safe space needed for chaotic emotions to organize themselves into incredible strength. So, since the simple, quiet act of listening has the profound power to disarm fear, stop bullying in its tracks, and rebuild a shattered identity, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought today. Look around your life, your workplace, your home. Who is spinning out of control right now? Who can you simply listen to today? Give it a try and watch how it transforms absolutely everything.